Hey, everybody, it's Bob Smith, and this is a special edition of the Outdated Entertainment Hour. We're a little bit offbeat and short, but I did want to say a few things, and I'm going to get around to that right away. It'll be a short show. We hope you'll find it informative and a little bit of fun, but we got something serious to talk about, too. So hold on for our wonderful theme song, and then you're going to hear Joe Walsh, and then you're going to hear me babble. As good as I can do the way things are going lately, I got to babble. So in any event, it's the Outdated Entertainment Hour. Stay with us.
This is Joe Walsh. One thing I do when I'm not playing rock and roll is get on the air as an amateur radio operator. Also called ham radio, is a communication service provided by ordinary people just like you and me. We have a national emergency communication system in place 24/7, 365. Find out more about amateur radio at arrl.org/What is ham radio? See you on the air.
Hi, everybody. My name is Bob Smith. You might remember me from my years in newspapers and magazines and a certain pseudo sport we all enjoy. I want to give you a little update on what's been going on. First of all, I want to thank you all wholeheartedly for the amazing response we got to the TV 100. Where we kind of ranked the 100 most influential series of all time. It's put the show on the map, and I really appreciate each and every one of you for tuning in. It really did well. And I want to thank once again the great Steve Gennarelli and the awesome Mr. Joe Puccio. I want to have them back on the show as often as they'll come back. Do you hear me, guys? Will you come back soon about anything, please? I also want to update you on some topics we're going to tackle in the next few shows, and I hope you'll tune in for these. How about a show about toys? The stuff we grew up playing with. You know, Kenner and Wham-O and, things like that. We're going to do a show about toys, and we hope you tune in for that. Adam Baratow, you may remember from the fantasy film show, we're going to look at the most influential Broadway shows of all time. Or something like that. We're going to look at magazines, genre magazines, the state of the industry, why magazines kind of ruled the roost back in the 40s, 50s, even through the 70s. Not anymore, but they used to. Books, we may do a best of the year segment. We're going to do more TV, and we're going to do great shows that nobody watched. We'll see how many you can remember. Also, we're going to do a show on bad pop music. Plenty of that. So anyway, I hope you'll tune in for all the stuff we have going on. But this is going to be kind of an adjoiner show, as I call these things, because something serious going down, and I want to help. And I think maybe you'd want to help too. I'm talking about Helene, the hurricane, which is one of the worst things I've ever seen in terms of weather, in terms of human suffering, in terms of a lot of things. I don't want to get in a soapbox about anything. I just want to help. It's kind of overwhelming me right now because I have spent so many wonderful times, particularly when I was a blues mission going down south, through Georgia, through the Carolinas, especially Florida. I played the something called the Treasure Coast Blues Festival down there 5 times, and I played Winder, Georgia, which has been in the news, at a wonderful blues bar that was there. I played Blind Willie's in Atlanta, throughout the Carolinas too. And I'm just, very sad about what's going on now there. Frankly, I don't think it's getting enough coverage. When something like that is the second or third story in the news, something's wrong. I know it's an election year, but this is important stuff. These are people's lives. So in this case, I always think back to 9/11. How inspired I was back then. Here in the New York City area where I live, when people from other states and the southern states came running here to New York City to help in any way they could. You had people from the Carolinas digging through rubble. You had people cooking food for the firemen and police and everybody who helped. And on it went. I mean, nurses and doctors and you name it, and police officers and firemen and armed service people. It was inspiring. 9/11 was one of the worst days of my life, but the way people rebounded from it and all came together to help. I hate to be corny, but it's like what Mr. Rogers said, look for the helpers. Right now, I want to help because, like I say, I have so many friends in Tennessee and all these other states that are so affected by what's going on that I decided to take it upon myself to just look up a few really good charities that maybe you'd like to donate along with me, okay? I'm not telling you how much to spend or where to spend it, but I'm going to just highlight a few that I'm kind of partial to. And in future episodes, I'll talk a little more about, if things are still not getting better down there. We'll look at some more charities too, but there's a really special one called All Hands and Hearts. It works directly with local residents down there to rebuild schools, homes, and area infrastructure. So let's make it easy with all these charities. It's called All Hands and Hearts. Just type it in your browser. You know how people spend all the time on these podcasts reading off website names, www.http. No, I'm not going to bother you with that. It's far easier to just go to your browser and type in the name of it. It's called All Hands and Hearts. Another one that kind of inspires me is World Central Kitchen, where a genuine TV star, Chef Jose Andres, who has been on television a million times. You know why? He goes to where people need it most and cooks wonderful food for them at a time when many of them don't have a plate left to their names. Oh, it's so devastating to my heart to think that people had their homes washed away. This is, to be down. I don't want to be a downer, and I don't want to be too solemn, but it's just time to help. And I feel like I really want to, and I bet you do too. There's the North Carolina Disaster Relief Fund, which is doing a bang-up job, and the Florida Disaster Fund, as well as the GoFundMe Hurricane Relief Fund. You just type in Hurricane Relief Fund on GoFundMe, and you will find it right there. Those are the ones I've found so far. I think it would be a wonderful idea if we all just, if you got $2, $5, I know things are tight for a lot of people, and maybe you're doing a little better than that. But what I like to do is I like to take a bit, some of the money I want to spend and spread it amongst all these organizations. That's the way I do it usually with charity. Do whatever you want, but you know what? Let's not do nothing. Imagine what it would be like in your life to just wake up one day and realize you had to run somewhere else, and then you come back to nothing. Some of it's worse than nothing. Submerged in water and lives washed away. I don't know what to say other than let's help. Let's get together. Let's do it. They did it for us here in the East on 9/11. Let's help in any way we can. I don't want to preach to you. Take your coffee money one day and send it to an organization that you can put your trust in. And by all means, research the organizations you would donate money to. I think it's important. So I'll get off my soapbox other than to say, Georgia, I love you. Florida, I love you. Tennessee, I really love you. I love the Carolinas. I miss them all. I haven't been in years, and I'm dying to get back for any possible reason. One of my best friends in the world lives in Florida, and I love him too, and I don't get to see him nearly as much as I'd like to. I know. First world problems, right? But let's not bring a third world to these people who were hit by this horrible storm. Let's help them out best we can. Are you with me? Please? I bet you are. Come on. Let's do it together. Let's bring smiles to faces who aren't smiling at all right now. And again, this is not what this show is about. I'm not here to be a preacher man or anything like that. We're going to talk about entertainment. Lately we've had the Oscars and the Emmys and things like that. And I seem to be very, very happy with the Emmys this year. I'll be honest with you. I don't watch as much episodic television as I used to. I used to be a TV junkie. But as your life gets busy, and even at my advanced, outdated age, I don't have much time to watch series or anything like that. Particularly as I'm on my other podcast, looking at things from that perspective. I have to watch television in that regard. And given the fact that I'm still working full-time in media and doing 2 podcasts, my time is very, very stretched. So I'm not as much on television as I used to be. You know why? There's too much of it. I can't keep up with it. Can you keep up with it? I'll talk a little bit now about some things that are really good about streaming. Frankly, I think streaming is the way to go, and it's the wave of the future. I want to give a shout out to Apple TV Plus. Not about the programming. It looks and sounds great. I think sonically and visually, it's the standard. Have you ever watched MLB on Apple TV Plus? It's magnificent. It's like you're there, especially if you have a good television set, especially an old LED or a set like that, or OLED, however they pronounce it. It's spectacular. It's absolutely amazing. Apple TV Plus looks and sounds great. And so does Amazon Prime. I'll admit, around the holidays, we picked up a little LED set from LG, and I'm setting it up. And the very first thing I looked at was Reacher, the series called Reacher on Amazon Prime. And my jaw dropped. It looks so good. So we're really living in a golden age of TV in terms of the quality of the sound and visuals. And I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful I lived long enough to see it. I remember my dad used to spend 4 months' salary to go to the store with a friend in a truck. So the two of them could drag this big console thing into the house with a screen about no better than 16 inches wide. Seriously. That's how old I am. I'm very thankful that I've lived in a time where, well, here's some things I'll admit. I used to have to dial the phone with my finger. Used to have to get up to turn the channel on the television or turn it up or down or adjust the picture. I went to 50-cent matinees as a child to see films. If this isn't outdated, I don't know what is. Amongst other things that you just don't do anymore. I use the yellow pages, right? There's so many things that we all used to do when you hit my age that you just don't have to do anymore. Cell phones are like magic. I couldn't imagine being a kid having a cell phone, doing all the things I did and all the, having a way to communicate like that. You didn't have to go to a payphone booth. There's another thing. We're all very, very lucky to be living in the time we're living in. Let's not lose sight of that. Now, as I sit down to record this episode, it's Monday the 30th of September, and word had reached me today that songwriter primarily Chris Christopherson had died. And talk about a guy who branched out. Became a famous actor, did The Star is Born with Barbra Streisand, and one of the weirdest movies of the 70s that I ever saw, The Sailor Who Fell from Grace with the Sea, which had murder elements and more sex than any R-rated film I'd ever seen in my life. But I had seen it as a kid, so it kind of made me want to see it a second time. But anyway, he also writes some tremendous songs and had that gravelly singing voice. I hesitate to call him one of the outlaws, but I guess he was, when it comes to C&W music. But he was his own man. A little folk, a little country, a little rock and roll. Nobody else like Chris Christopherson out there. Or Tito Jackson, who with his brothers, part of the Jackson 5, who were just it when I was in junior high school. That's all I know. Maybe even grade school, if I go back that far. That's right. The Jackson 5 were just it. Pro wrestler Sid Vicious was, well, big and vicious. And really left his mark. He left us far too soon recently. And James Earl Jones. Is that the greatest voice of all time or what? Nobody was an orator like James Earl Jones. And he was in so many films. And so many ads. People were just knocking the doors down to get him to be a spokesman for their products. And I can see why. He just had an amazing, amazing voice. A great presence. And I recently saw The Sandlot for the first time in the film. And he was kind of a cameo in that one, and it was a great performance. He never let anybody down. One of the great actors, Broadway. He owned Broadway for the longest time. James Earl Jones, an American legend. So anyway, I'm glad you checked in with us for this small show. It's just going to be about 20, 25 minutes, but I wanted to let you know we're still around. We're still going to try to come out every other Wednesday. All right? Also, I had COVID. It kind of knocked me on my butt for about 10 days. Really did. Another reason why we postponed the show that would originally be in this slot. So thank you for bearing with us, but I didn't want to leave the spot empty and let you know we're coming up with all these shows and all these concepts and some great guests you're really going to enjoy. And we're really going to get into the nitty-gritty about, well, classic entertainment. In our goofy year, the word outdated means classic. And as I get older, I'm just thankful I had a chance to see all these wonderful things. So let's stay entertained and let's stay caring. Let's get out there and help the hurricane victim as best we can. And let's be grateful for all the wonderful entertainment we've had a chance to see. Both the Outdated Entertainment Hour and the Outdated Wrestling Hour are productions of Bob Smith Podcasts. Our website, outdatedentertainment.buzzsprout.com. Newly redesigned. You can hear all of our shows at the click of a button. And you know what? I it took me this long to figure this out. You want to hear anything that I do, just type the name in the browser, Outdated Wrestling Hour or Outdated Entertainment Hour. Poof, it all comes up. That's the easiest way to go rather than read all these names to you. You can also find me on Facebook. I'm the only Bob Smith you'll find that ever sang with B.B. King. Of course, I had a stage name then called Robert Charles, but I've led a charmed life, I'm telling you. Write to us at outdatedent@gmail.com. Just plain outdatedent@gmail. Like I said, Facebook, you can find me. I'm also infrequently on Twitter because I don't like what it's become. I'm on Threads, but I don't tend to enjoy that either. But I do check in to say hello to some old friends of mine. Facebook is my jam, so to speak. But I want to thank everybody for listening and being part of what we do here. We promise to try to be the most unique entertainment podcast you've ever heard, at least in terms of nostalgia. Like I said, I'm working on some great guests. Some that may surprise you, some that won't. Some you may not know, but know so much about the subjects that we're going to bring you. Like, I'm so proud of the comic book show that we did. The TV 100 was an awesome show that really put us on the map. Did a show on the Guess Who. And by the way, I don't know if you heard, the Guess Who settled a lawsuit with the, for lack of a better term, and I put this in finger quotes, the fake band that had been running around calling themselves the Guess Who, that Jim Cale and Gary Peterson were part of. And they have settled. The trademark reportedly has moved to Burton Cummings and Randy Bachman. And there will be no more cover band running around pretending to be the Guess Who, to put it in an artistic term. And I'm thrilled with that. I think that's amazing. We don't know there will ever be Guess Who concerts again. The guys are up in age. They're pushing 80. I think Randy Bachman just turned 80. Cummings is in his late 70s. So I do believe maybe the two of them will tour as a version of the Guess Who or play the music of the Guess Who. But there won't be a bunch of people you've never heard of jumping on stage that are 30 years too young calling themselves the Guess Who. This is a very nice moment for art in entertainment because they took the art out of it. You know, there's too many classic rock bands running around that have very little to do with the original members of the band. You know, some have no original members, some have one original member who was like the bass player. Let's stop that. Have a little respect for music listeners. And the worst part of that is when you buy a concert ticket and there's a name on a marquee and you walk in and you don't recognize the people you once saw when you were younger. Frankly, I'd feel ripped off. In fact, I once wrote an article for a national magazine called Rock Off, how classic rock bands rip off their loyal fans. That was the name of the article. And this has been going on a long time. You know, I hate to call them fake bands, but you know, let's be real. There is nothing wrong if you were a member of a band and you put out an act called, like Glenn Hughes, who used to sing with Deep Purple. When you go to see him, he tells you exactly what it is. He's not calling himself Deep Purple. He may see he's singing the music of Deep Purple that he originally sang, but he's got artistic integrity. I love that. For anybody who used to be in a band. Randy Bachman himself, it's called, he's touring right now as BTO, but it's Bachman Turner Overdrive featuring Randy Bachman. There it is. He has, you know, his brothers have passed on. So now he has his son playing with him and another relative and some good hired hands. But you don't go to the concert thinking you're seeing the original 4 or 5 members in that band. You're going to see this version of the band. It's right out in front and clear to understand. And I think that's wonderful. That's how you do it. I mean, 10 years ago, there was an act running around called the Ink Spots. I think the Ink Spots started in the 1920s and 30s. How is it possible that the original vocal group? So if you want to see or a tribute to or look back on or bill yourself as the original lead singer of a band, like Lou Graham was always up front. I got to give him credit, the original lead singer of Foreigner. He didn't run around calling himself Foreigner. Do it right. You know what? People remember and people love you. I saw a terribly performed concert about 15 to 18 years ago. It was a double bill of Bo Diddley and Chuck Berry. And maybe it's longer ago than that. They were on the same bill. And Bo Diddley was so bad, his band was calling chord changes to themselves on stage where you could actually hear the bass player yelling them to the other musicians. And Chuck Berry was famous for hiring whoever was available in town to play, backup for him. The shows were sloppy, and Chuck Berry was out of tune, and it barely reached the realm of professionalism. And guess what? Crowd went nuts. Right? They were just so happy to be there and reliving the songs of their youth. They didn't care that it wasn't Minute Rice perfect. They were just there to see the legends. You know why? They have an appreciation for the people they listened to when they were younger. And that's what this show's all about. We appreciate the entertainers, the magazines, the comic books, the toys, all that stuff that we're lucky enough to be born onto this wonderful planet and be able to enjoy. In a way, this show just kind of gives thanks. And I don't want to be corny about it, but that's what we're all about here. I do not want to do controversial things on this show. I really don't. Although I thought the Guess Who thing was, newsworthy, considering we did a wonderful show with Mark Doble about it. About that band. But you're never going to hear like backstage scuttlebutt on this show or controversy about how somebody drank or how somebody was a terrible person. That's not it. Like with our other show, we want to focus on what was on the screen, what was on the records, what was in print, the actual entertainment, not the backstage scuttlebutt, as it were. So if you're into that, come and join us every 2 weeks. Once in a while, we'll take a holiday off, but we're going to try to get back on our every 2 week schedule. And we appreciate your sticking around with us. As of right now, please join me in helping out our southern states. Show them we care. Everybody came running to us on 9/11. It's time for us to run down there and do whatever we can. And I know we will. You know why? This is America, the greatest country on the face of the earth. I still believe that. And I still believe in outdated entertainment. My name is Bob Smith. This is the Outdated Entertainment Hour. Thanks for taking a few minutes to check this particular show out. I hope you enjoyed my rantings. I hope you didn't mind my reaching out and talking about these charities, but I think it's important right now, especially right now. These people need help ASAP. We can do this. We can do this. Somebody famous recently said there's nothing America can't do if we do it together. I agree. So until next time, let's quote another great musician, Ringo Starr. At the end of every concert, he puts his fingers in a V shape and he says, "Peace and love, brothers and sisters. Peace and love."